Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Akakwadash. And I want to say Shalom to Yakim Akwat out there, pursuing this truth diligently. Coming at you once again with another lesson. And this one's titled Esau's Vile and Cannibalistic Tendencies. Alright, Esau's Vile and Cannibalistic Tendencies. And I think this one is going to be probably about a two-parter, depending on how long we really go on with it. And yeah, man, so this is really coming off of a comment board from Threads that I happened to see earlier this morning. And it was posted by this individual. I'll just go over here. It's this individual, Saucy Dog 002. And, you know, it looks to be this, Jake individual that looks ridiculous, alright, with his hair all buzzed up and face all gone, but, that's besides the point. What he does say is, accurate. It says, now, it was showing an old cartoon. Now, I don't remember what exactly the old cartoon was. I don't think it was Popeye, but around that era, Popeye type era, Betty Boop type era of cartoon. And it says, shortly after they went from black and white to being color for the first time. I think they called it Technicolor, like the Looney Tunes, right? So he said, I guess it is Popeye, duh. No, it does say Popeye, all right. So it says, what actually bothers me more in this infamous Popeye short is not how much food that he can chew, it's the racist caricatures that were being depicted here. They portrayed black people as savages here, while throughout history, white people were eating us. Okay, now anybody that's in the know, or has been in the know for any semblance of time, is going to know that this guy isn't lying, right? The big book that comes to mind is The Delectable Negro. It's a book, and I can't remember who exactly brought that out for the first time. Who was it exactly? I can't remember who it was. I know the apostles have talked about it. I know the brothers have talked about it. I know the elder Manata Zatba from down there in South Carolina. He's talked about it very specifically. I know I've heard Apostle Tahar speak about it. If he's the head of GMS, so that means most of the other brothers probably know about it to some extent. And I think I've heard Apostle Guevara talk about it as well. So the know's going out, at least within the truth, all right? Those that know they're Hebrew Israelites, those who know what our true identity is, we know about Esau's cannibalistic tendencies, regardless of if we've read The Delectable Negro or not, all right? It's just one of those things that's known. We've known that. We know the sweat boxes. We know the buck breaking. We know the origin term of motherfucker. We know the slave teeth, all right, being used for what's his name's teeth, and not it wasn't bone. It wasn't animal bone. What was his name? Was it George Washington, I believe? I think somebody else had him as well. We know about how they would take slave hair and they would take it and put it into couches and pillows and all sorts of shit. We know about that. We know all these things, man. We know that they used to run weird, crazy experiments, some of those even being sexual experiments upon black women, all right, and probably more so likely not as documented, but black men as well. We know about all these. We know about the Tuskegee experiments, all right, where they tested tuberculosis and really probably other diseases on Jake, all right, without their knowledge through the G to the A, the G to the J to the A to the B, all right, to the S, all right, those little, I got to be careful, you know what that means, all right, the little V to the A, all right, to the word after, the letter after W, right? So when you put all those together, all right, they put those things in those things. They do all these different things, and they'll try to say that they didn't. But if you go and look up the Tuskegee experiments, that's exactly what they did. Okay, you can't try to say that that's that's not correct information and that's misinformation when that's literally what happened in the Tuskegee experiments. That's literally what they did to Israel, all right, our people, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. But yet they're the saints, right? They're the people. They're the J-E to the W's. All right, they're the 1948ers. They're the royals. They're the perfect little people. They're the fair ones. They're the fairest of them all. That's all their shit, right? They're the fairest of them all. They're the prettiest. They're the sweetest. They're the nicest. They're the kindest. But Jake, we're just a bunch of, absolutely barbaric savages and all these different things. Why? Because our people, run with gangs, all right, and shoot up other people that are in other gangs that are, our people as well, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And that type of violence doesn't affect so-called white people, but we're the savages, even though, they're laying with children, they're eating people, all right, they're doing all this crazy shit that was all revealed within the Epstein files, but everybody saw and promptly forgot everything that was going on with that. But no, we're the issue, right? We're the lowest, they're the highest, right? They're the epitome of what is holy and godly and right and white and righteous. But no, we're just, low down and dirty and disgusting and vile and savage. And that's really just Esau projecting. All right, they're projecting all of their traits upon us. They're saying that we're vile. They're saying that we're savages. They're saying that we're sexually immoral. And why there are people of, Israel that are like that, and Israel has, become like that, that's not our heritage at the end of the day. That's Idumean heritage. That's heathenistic cultures. That's heathenistic lifestyles, right? But no, it's us. We're the problem. Even though they're the ones that own the government. They're the ones that are doing all this shit. They're the ones in the file. Think about how many black people showed up in that file, all right? So-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, all right? How many? Not as many as as many so-called white people did. All right, that should tell you something. But again, no, we're the savages, right? So this guy says this. I'll go ahead and read it again. Saucy Dog 002 says, what actually bothers me more in the infamous Popeye short is not how much food he can chew. It's the racist caricatures, that were being depicted here. It says they portrayed black people as, he said, are savages, as savages here, while throughout history, white people were eating us. Now, how do you think this went? Do you think people said, yeah, you're right, for the most part? No. People argued. There's a bunch of Edomites that got upset and in their feelings because they're getting called out about actions that they did do, all right? So, and they use a lot of hypocrisy as well. So, this guy, Bubonic Bubbles, now, if you actually go to the original thread, this guy was fucking everywhere, man, everywhere. You would see, let's see if he pops up again, just the ones that I've screenshotted. It doesn't look like he did, but let me tell you, I tell you no lies, brothers and sisters, this guy was popping up fucking everywhere. He must have had at least 5-6 comments on there, replying back to people over and over and over and over and over again, right? So, he says, white people were eating black people? That's the dumbest shit I've read today, all right? And then this guy says, this is a black individual, all right? And I say black because he's void of light. He doesn't have any of the knowledge or understanding imparted into him because everyone's responding back to the Saucy Dog. And he said, in reference to the original poster, Saucy Dog, he's saying he's not going to respond, y'all. They never do when proven wrong. And this makes me think, the way this is worded, it makes me think that this individual is more than likely an Edomite as well. They never do. They never do when they're proven wrong, right? Or he could be talking about Jake's side, all right? I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but he should have worded it a little bit better. So I won't get on him too much. He says he's not going to respond, y'all. They never do when proven wrong. So I don't know if he's referring to this guy, right? Who knows? And I think more than likely, he's probably responding to that guy. At least I hope he's responding to this guy, Bubonic Bubbles. I hope he's not referring to this guy as saying this guy is wrong. I don't know with Jake anymore. All right. And again, Slacky, if that's what you meant, the hearts he holler or whatever the hell your name is. But you have a lot of Jake cooning out these days for the white man and trying to defend him and everything. No, they never ate white people. They never ate black people. They never ate us. They never ate us. Come on, man. What are you just a coon, or are you just really fucking a bugged out 2/3 Edomite lackey? You're an Edomite lapdog, all right? That's what the black woman is, and you're taking the same fucking perspective. So this person, Lift Plant Nerd, actually knows a little bit of something. They went and posted white cannibalism in the illegal slave trade. And then this guy, Sniper Scope 11, another Edomite, says, let's be real, that was your family, not mine. You need to claim them. What are you talking about? You are those same people coming back. And that's another reason why Esau will never get down with the reincarnation doctrine. And reincarnation is biblical. It's a biblical fact. All right, we have plenty of lessons to prove it. We being the brothers that are in this truth, that are teaching and preaching in sincerity. We have plenty of lessons. All right, you go on my lesson, you go on my page, I'll have some. Of course, you go to any brother in GMS, they're going to have some just about. You go to any of the elders, they're going to have some. And of course, all the apostles have lessons on reincarnation. A matter of fact, I don't remember who it was, but one of the apostles, one of the lessons they made was literally just called reincarnation, a biblical fact, right? And it is a biblical fact. And that's one of the main reasons, is because Esau operates off that plausible deniability. They can say, oh, well, we're not the same people. Well, if they affirm what's true, and they never affirm what's true, they only do what's wrong, they would know that, if they knew it was right, they would know that reincarnation is biblical, it is true, and they would know that there's those same people coming back. Now, the higher up Edomites, they actually do know they're the same people coming back. Those are your, Rockefellers, Vanderbilts, all right, Rothschilds, all right, all these different, big league banking families, they know, and that's why they really try to keep it, in the family, so to speak. They try to keep it either with them or, with other families, which really they all go back to Rothschilds, I believe. It was a big split, and they just called themselves in different names to make it look like it wasn't all the Rothschilds. They came with the Vanderbilts and, all these different individuals to make it seem like it was different families, but it's really just, that one family. They're all through the Rothschilds. Okay, which what I read somewhere a long time ago. I can't remember exactly. I don't remember if a brother was talking about it as well. But yeah, man, and it all goes back to the Borgias. All right, the Borgias family. The first crime family. All right, and that was the Borgias. Anyway, so I have it here. So when Esau says, no, that was them. That wasn't us. All right, some white people did, but not all white people did. Well, that doesn't really add up when you have individuals out there like us, all right, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans that are, working honest jobs or providing for ourselves one way or another, through, multiple different ways, whether, honest ways, mind you, either self-employed or working for a company or however you happen to be. And then you have, we're not going around dressing like thugs and gangbangers, but we get lumped in with the thugs and the gangbangers, and all black people, all Latinos, and all these blacks and these Mexicans. But, we're not doing those things, but we get lumped in. But you don't like it when you get lumped in. That's hypocrisy. All right? That's a hypocrite. Okay? Let's go and get a scripture about hypocrisy. Let's just go here and see what we get. Nothing necessarily jumps out to the mind. Let's see. Let's see. Well, I think we have Luke 12 and 2. Let me see. I get it a lot. I tried to get different scriptures that I try not to get the same ones all the time. But, let's just read Luke 12 and 2. It says, red letter, Yahushua speaking, for there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known. And that's really an excellent, I wouldn't really consider that a hypocrisy scripture, but it's great that it's here because that's really an excellent way to open up here. Because all these things that you tried to cover, they're coming about, Esau. You're being revealed, all right? And that's a big chunk of what this lesson's really about. Because you try to say, oh, no, we didn't do that. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. We didn't do those things. We didn't do those things. No, but everything goes back to you doing them. Right? We have all the receipts. Yahushua gave us the receipts. So you can't say you didn't purchase milk when we can tell you right here that on April 27th at 5:45 p.m., all right, you bought a gallon of milk for $7. You can't say that didn't happen when we have the receipt on your ass, right? And it has your credit card number linked up with your name, and it's all you. No, that wasn't me. It was you. It was you, right? Well, someone else took my card. All right, roll the cameras, and they roll the cameras. Isn't that you? Well, yeah, I don't remember doing it. Yeah, lying about the lies that you lied about. All right, as you hear the elder Manatazatba mentioned down there in South Carolina, you lying about the lies you lied about. So, with that, let's go ahead and read a little bit about white cannibalism, all right, in the illegal slave trade. And this is from Science Direct. Okay, and again, you can try to deny it, but it's there. It's factual, all right? So it says abstract. The Portuguese schooner Arrogante was captured in late November 1837 by HMS Snake off the coast of Cuba. At the time, the Arrogante had been more than 330 Africans on board, Israelites. Okay, Israelites. It says, who had been shipped from the Upper Guinea coast. And because, again, that was just one of the ports that they got Jake from. Jake was in Africa, but they're not from Africa, all right? Just like there's people, for example, actual African individuals that are living in England, but they're not, they wouldn't be called, they're not really from England. They're from Africa. They just happen to be there currently. They have African lineage. So it's the same thing with our people that are Israelites, not African. They lump us in with the Africans. All right, they lump us in because the skin color. And really, it's another covering cast. It's another. How do I want to explain? It's another one of their abilities that they use to try to, get us to not know who we are. Oh, we're African. When if you just look, you don't look anything like those people. You don't act anything like those people. Your eyes don't look like those people. All right, you don't try to say, oh, you're Ethiopian. Ethiopians got different eyes, man. They got different facial features. All right, some Jake do, but not all Jake do. Some Jake are going to have African-looking features. All right. Some Jake are not going to have African-looking features, all right? And more than likely, the Jake with the African-looking features have a little bit of Hamite somewhere down the line from the woman's side, right? A Jake might have gotten with a Hamite. They were in the land, all right? They were in that land of Ham. You don't think Jake was getting down? Absolutely. But it goes through the bloodline of your father, as we know. So, of course, you might have a couple Hamitic features, but you're actually just a Jake. But if you go and look at the Hamites that are actually in that land of Ham over there in Africa, they got different shaped arms, different shaped hands, different shaped heads, long-ass necks, lips that are different, noses that are different. All right, the Africans have this specific curve to their nose that Jake don't have. Jake have wider nostrils and wider bridges to the nose and wider nose tips. All right, Africans, they have extremely wide nose tips, but their bridge, all right, their nasal bridge, all right, where Jake's is slightly dipped in, African nasal bridges are completely pushed in, almost like a pug. That's what they actually call it, I believe, is pug nose, all right, because they're actually completely pushed in and tilted all the way up. That's not what Jake has, okay? Our people don't look like those people, okay? Our people don't look like those people, okay? They never try to call a Mexican a Brazilian, all right, or a Dominican, all right? So they give, the Northern Kingdom that distinguishing, but with Southern Kingdom, they just say, oh, black, all black. But then again, you have the, Ethiopians that look kind of black in some ways, but they're, as they would say, black people, but they're not called black people, all right? Dominicans, they're dark skinned, but they're not really called black people, or are they black people? Because we're just going off of dark skin. Are they black people? Is a Jamaican an Ethiopian and a Dominican and an African all the same people? No, they're not the same people. So why do you just call them all black people, all Africans, right? It's ridiculous. Or you try to say, oh, they all go back somehow to Africa. No, they don't, though. They don't. And the American black person, which is really an Israelite, they don't have a name for it. They're just African American. No, they're Israelites, all right? You can call them Israelite Americans, if anything, because they're Israelites that are dwelling in America, not Africans, okay? But again, it's all a bunch of different covering casts and bullshit. But anyway, we've talked about it time and time again. It says, once the vessel arrived in Montego Bay, Jamaica, the British, I wonder why they were going to Montego Bay. The British authorities apprenticed those who had survived shortly after landing, so it was done by the British. However, the Arrogante sailors were accused of slaughtering an African man, cooking his flesh, and forcing the rest of those enslaved on board to eat it. Furthermore, they were also accused of cooking and eating themselves the heart and liver of the same man. So they were accused themselves of doing that. Not black people, the Europeans. And, it mentions the Portuguese, and that's the big thing, is that the Portuguese, you have the, over there in areas like that, okay, if you look at Portuguese people, it'll talk about Brazil, more than likely. It should mention Brazil. But you see, it's also in Portugal. But, people that speak Portuguese or Portugal, you'll also see people in Brazil. But the Brazilian people, all right, are different than the Portuguese people, all right? The Brazilian people, they go back to, what is it? It's not Naphtali, is it? Is it Manasseh? One minute. 12 tribes, sign, GMS. It's one of them. Manasseh's the Cubans. Naphtali, it is Naphtali. Naphtali is the Argentinians, the Chileans. So or actually, Slovakia. Colombians, Asher. They're Asher, okay, because they're Colombian, okay. So, so Colombian, which would make them Asher, okay. Colombia map. You see, right there, Peru, Brazil, Colombia, right, Asher, right. So, going back, right back here. So the original, so the Portuguese that they're talking about are, Portugal, right? Portugal people. Now they say they come from Celtic tribes, but that's false. All right, maybe the more modern Celts, but the original Celts were actually, so-called Negroes, if you really want to get down to it. All right, and that's where my lineage goes back to. My actual last name, that's not the last name that I have currently, and it's not the last name my grandfather has because he was adopted, but the original last name of his father, his actual bloodline father, I'm not going to give it away, but it's in Gaelic, okay, ancient Celt, what it means is Lord or Brown, all right? So, and they probably split that up. Brown, Lord, probably Brown Lord, right? Can also mean a horse rider, a horse lord, all right? But Brown Lord, Brown Lord. Think about all these places, they're last names all over Europe. How do you think you ended up with the name Blackmore? How do you think that happened? Or the last name Moore, all right? Or the last name Black or Brown. Where do you think these names came from, man? Anyway, going back, it says the Celtic tribe. No, Romans, Lusitians, and other influences from Germanic groups. It says and Moors. Bullshit. Right? Not these Portuguese people. Maybe the original Portuguese that we don't know what they look like anymore. Right? But not these individuals. These are just Edomites. These are just Edomites right here. Right? These are just regular old Edomites. And some of them are brown over there. Some of those are probably remnants of the older people. Right? That were, there at one point. Who originally inhabited Portugal? Let me say Coney and Celtic, Gilici, and others were says which were later extensively Romanized. So who knows about those original? Some of the people that were originally there probably might have been so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans that were they're calling Celts and stuff like that. Again, plausible deniability. But then of course more Romanized version came through. And what does that mean? Edomites came through. All right, because the Edomite bloodline is synonymous with Rome because of Herod the Edomite. All right. Anyway, getting back into it, explain a bunch of that. So it says, furthermore, they were also accused of cooking and eating themselves the heart and liver of the same man. This article focuses not so much on the actual event as the transatlantic as on the transatlantic process that followed, during which knowledge was produced and contested, and relative meanings and predetermined cultural notions associated with Europeans and Africans were probed and queried. So it says, at dawn on November 23rd, 1837, HMS Snake, under the command of Captain Alexander Milne, spotted a suspicious brig on the horizon just off of Cuba's westernmost point. So there's Cuba, Manasseh, all right? It says, so Jake, it says, westernmost point, the Cape of San Antonio. On the brig, a slave vessel named Arrogante. The sailors saw a larger cruiser ship in the distance, a circumstance that led the captain to give orders to find an escape route as quickly as possible. The getaway attempt was short-lived, as the fast-sailing British cruiser soon caught up with the slave traders, although only after being forced to fire several shots at it in spite of heavy rains and winds that made the chase all the more difficult. Upon boarding the ship, Captain Milne reported that its decks were crammed with enslaved Israelites, kept in atrocious conditions. In a private letter to his brother written a couple months later, Milne referred to the Israelites aboard as actual skeletons with death in their countenances. So you could see the death in their eyes because it was going to come because they were so emaciated, right? Which means starving. Milne, a seasoned officer who had encountered several slave vessels before, confessed to be shocked as never before by the sight of dead children lying about the deck. See, this is the type of shit that they tried to hide from you, Jake. It says, while others were in the last stage, all calling for food and water and pointing at their mouths. Without wasting any time, Captain Milne sent Lieutenant Robert Boyle Miller to take control of the Arrogante as prize master to guide her immediately to Montego Bay, Jamaica, in order to disembark the Africans, as it says, Israelites, Slovakia, before continuing towards Sierra Leone, where the vessel and the crew were to be brought before the Anglo-Portuguese Court of Mixed Commission. It's Mixed Commission. It says, in the meantime, after seizing yet another slave ship only hours later, Milne and Snake sailed to the Jaguar harbor on the south side of the island of Cuba, where they delivered most of Arrogante's crew and their passengers to the governor of the fort of Jaguar. The Arrogante, with a crew of 35 men, mostly Portuguese, which included the captain, the pilot, and other officers, plus 8 passengers, had obtained her human cargo 40 days before from the notorious Spanish slave dealer Pedro Blanco. Okay, again, another Edomite, another European, all right? The Spanish nowadays look a little bit brown, but, that's because of, years of mixing and mingling. Those are Edomites, all right? The original Spaniards were blonde hair, blue-eyed. Again, they try to blend in a little bit, and Jake gets down, so, helps him out a little bit. It says, Blanco, who incidentally was one of the 8 passengers at the mouth of the river of Galanas, the upper Guinea coast. A total of 470 Israelites, many of them children and adolescents, so that's the real sick thing, right? It says, had been crowded, and they're probably doing other sick, twisted, vile things. I'm not going to say it, but you know what they're probably doing. They're probably doing some Epstein shit, too. It says, had been crowded under the small deck of the brig and sent on their way to Cuba. Almost certainly consigned to the house of Pedro Martinez and Co. of Havana and Cadiz. When the ship came across, and again, a lot of those names right there, they're not Jake. See, that's so-called Negros, Latinos, Native Americans. That's that Northern Kingdom right there. Well, first of all, no. All right, a lot of these names that you're seeing are referring to original. Spanish is of Spain. It's of a Roman dialect. That's not even our language. All right, our people have speak those things. All right, and speak like that and have those names. All right, because of the colonization that was happening in those lands, all right, whether it be Brazil, whether it be Cuba, whether it be Mexico, wherever they happen to be, they were highly colonized lands, all right, by Europeans, okay? So in that same fact, a lot of those people are Edomites as well, but just like a lot of people aren't. Jake never likes to admit. They say, well, you're trying to let in Mexicans. They hate us. Well, first of all, it already says in the Bible that how certain Northern Kingdom tribes are going to have issues with Southern Kingdom tribes. That's just how it's going to be. All right, so that doesn't mean that they're not Jakes. Now, a lot of those so-called Latinos and Native Americans really Edomites? Yeah, all right, not all of them, but and there it's a good 50-50, man. It's a good 50-50. But the thing is, you Jakes like to say, see, so there are a good chunk of Edomites, all right? But there's also a good chunk of Edomites within so-called black people. You never want to talk about going down south, all right, with all those all the individuals that came out of the rape of a black woman, all right, by a slave master. You guys never want to talk about that. You guys never want to talk about that. You never want to talk about all the children that were brought forth from, white men's seed through raped, all right, enslaved black women. Never want to talk about that. So there's a lot of black people out there that aren't even, Jake, all right? They're Edomites. But you never want to talk about that, all right? There's a good chunk of all. There's a good chunk of black people that really ain't Jake. There's a good chunk of Latinos and Native Americans that really ain't Jake either. So yes, there's a good chunk, all right? So, but again, just like with that good chunk, there's even a better chunk, all right, of people that are Israelites, okay? So, and again, you're going to know them by how they act, all right? The same way you can discern a false prophet, knowing them by their fruits. It's the same thing you're going to be able to know. You can try, or another scripture says, try them of their spirits, whether they be of the Most High. Again, another scripture talking about the false prophets. But again, it works for anybody that you're trying to discern, all right? You have this weird individual, and you can't just jump to it because they act, a little Edomite. All right, you might have someone that's very lost, all right? For example, my dad, he would claim that he's white, through and through, all right? And, all these different things, guns, he likes guns and all these different things, and doesn't really listen, has any, if you talk to him, you can eventually discern that he's probably a Jake, but, I mean, he's into white Jeebus and all this different shit, and it's, and just like you have a brother that was down in England, he his quote-unquote lineage is Turkish, all right? His dad, he said you can't tell that guy that he's not Turkish, all right? So, again, there's not anything you can do to certain individuals that are not going to get it, all right? If they're 2/3, they're not going to get it, right? And some of our family members are 2/3, all right? So, anyway, so yeah, that when you read that Pedro Martinez, it's not talking about like who you would see being called Pedro or Martinez today, all right? It says, in the era of Havana and Cadiz, it says, when the ship came across HMS Snake, 64 of them had died, and by the time the Israelites were landed in Montego Bay, 11 days later, 74 more had passed away, in spite of all the intentions given to them by the assistant surgeon of the HMS Snake, which had accompanied Lieutenant Miller. What about them? Were they helping? Well, who knows why they're helping? They could have been trying to, get some of those captives on board. All right, if we know Esau, if he doeth good, he doeth it unwillingly. All right, so probably illegal passage or smuggling of slaves. They probably weren't doing it the right way. They probably need to enact some type of fine or something. That's how they work. That's their modus operandi, their methods of operation. All right. It said, where do we want to go? We'll continue on. It says, that violence affected upon this group of enslaved Israelites had been exceptional, became even clearer upon their arrival in Jamaica. There, John Roby, the collector of customs at Montego Bay, was just as perplexed as Captain Milne had been before him. In a letter sent to Commodore Peter John Douglas months later, Roby counted the horrible state of disease and emaciation prevailing among them, explaining that the thighs of many were not thicker than their own wrists. That's put your thigh to your wrist right now, right? It says, more alarming, however, was the revelation that many of the Israelites made soon afterward. On various occasions upon their arrival and over the next few months, a considerable number of them, mostly children and adolescents, have you ever noticed Esau deals a lot with children, all right? That's what they deal a lot with children, and not their version of children, because they say, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, they're all children. They're not children, all right? Biblically, you're a child once you hit, puberty, around 13, 12 to 13, right? 12 to 13. Give a year, take a year. 12 to 13. That's when you're adult, male or female, 12 or 13. Now you have children, all right? Yes, children, under that age that are hitting puberty at 8, all right, which is not how it should be. It normally was 12 to 13, sometimes 14 a little bit later, and that would signify their adulthood. Nowadays, getting your period, all right, or your balls dropping, that doesn't even mean you signified, you're an adult now, because that can happen when you're 7 or 8 in a rare case, all right, and that's not, right, but that's that human growth hormone that they put in shit, all right. Biblically, historically, 12 to 13 years old, all right, and that's when women would go out and find husbands, men would go out and find wives, and 13-year-old boys would have sex with 13-year-old girls and build families. Yes, back in the day, that's what they did. Nowadays, you're 17, and, you don't know how to cook, you don't know how to clean, you don't know how to start a fire, you don't know how to do anything, and, oh, it's okay, you're just a child. You can't do it, you are worthless, all right? People back in the day were learning how to do these things already, right? And by the time they were 13 or 14, they're getting out on their own, all right? And again, society has adolescentized, all right, the whole world, really, at the end of the day. They've made everybody into an adolescent. Now the thing is that a 30-year-old man cannot get with a 20-year-old woman, or he's a sexual predator, all right? And it's gone up and up and up. Again, back in the day, it was fine for a 13-year-old to be with a 17-year-old man, or however, or a 16-year-old girl could be with a 23-year-old, 30, 40-year-old man, but it's gotten more and more and more higher. It went from 12, 13, to 14, to 15, to 16, to 17, to 18, to 19, to 20, to now it's 21. And now it's even farther than a boundary of 21. Now if a woman's 25 and the man's 40, well, that's too far of an age gap. That's predatory behavior because his mind is more developed. Look, at this point, a 50-year-old woman is being preyed on by a 70-year-old man, right? Because he's 20 years old. Stupid. But, again, Esau does all this shit for whatever arbitrary reason. I don't know why he does it in society just to make himself look bad, right? And it's really, I don't, that's one of those things that doesn't, here it is, these individuals, these Edomites, they want to get with children, all right, little children, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I don't know why they've made it, seem like a bad thing to do within their society. I mean, I don't know why they'd want to be labeled as a villain. It's their society. They could have much well said, oh, no, it's perfectly normal to get with a 3-year-old. But it's the same thing. They could have made slavery go away. It was in the power of their hands in history, but they just didn't do it. Who knows why Esau didn't do certain of these things? Maybe it's because, the Lord, well, that's really, it's not maybe, because the Lord obviously didn't want that to happen, or it would have happened. But as far as Esau's reasoning behind it goes, who knows? I mean, because Esau could have hid the slavery. All right, they could have wiped it out from the books, but they had to do it to let you know that where you came from, you were a slave. We owned you, right? That's part of playing in your face, Jake. But why they do that with the children, who knows? But back to the point, Esau likes those little children, those 1, 2, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. The younger the better with Esau, right? So that's what they do. They do sick, twisted bullshit, all right? Not with people that were biblically permissible, 13 and 12, 14. They do it with that as well. And Esau say, oh, that's sick. You got with a 17-year-old. You should have waited, 1 more week before they turned 18. Then you would have been okay to do it. That doesn't even make any sense. I actually asked someone one time, I said, if you had a girl that was 17 and, she was going to a party at, 11 p.m., all right, at night, to celebrate because they were going to do an overnight party for when she hit 18, and she was 17, and she got there at 11, all right, and, you're drinking, you're having fun, and it's, 11:45, all right, and you're there, some of her friends are already turned 18, she's just waiting to wait 18, here it is, you're 20, all right, you're 19, you're in the same age gap by, 2-3 years, and this woman's 17, and, in 1 hour at midnight, she, that clock rolls over, bop, and now she's legal, right? If she comes up at 11:50, all right, and makes out with you, all right, and you grab her titties, all right, at 11:50, are you a sexual predator? All right? I've asked people this question, all right? And I said, if you go, as you're getting hot and heavy, it's 11:45, and she takes you upstairs because she wants to have sex with you, are you a sexual predator if you have sex with that when she wanted it and, it's only 15 minutes until she turns 18? Are you a sexual predator? And you know what I got from everybody? Yes. Yes, you are. So it's a matter of 15 minutes that makes or breaks if you're a sexual predator or not. You have to wait that 15 minutes. Did you know that? You have to wait that 15 minutes. Because it's not, all the years that have accumulated. It's that extra. Again, if it's 11:59, all right, and she gives you a hand job, Slack it for the vulgarity. If it's 11:59 and she gives you a hand job, all right, you should have waited one more minute, all right, because there's a big difference in mental capabilities with that 1 minute. You should have waited that arbitrary amount of time. Stupid. It's just like the same arbitrary fucking bullshit with the drinking. It's the same thing. You're 20 and it's 11:50. If you have an alcoholic beverage in your possession, you're drinking it. That's underage drinking. You're gonna get in trouble. You had to wait that 10 extra minutes. If I go into a store, I had it actually happen to me the first time when I turned 21. I had to wait a couple more minutes. Right? I had to stand there and wait because it was midnight. I went to a gas station to get me a brew and I had to wait like an extra 3 minutes because I walked there and I was a little too early. I had to sit there and wait as if that extra 3 minutes made me more mature enough to be able to drink alcohol now. Then again, Esau tried to say, oh, you're sick, you're justifying it. No, I'm saying the arbitrary bullshit standards you set are retarded. And anybody that doesn't see it is just as retarded as you are. You're going to tell me I had to wait 3 more minutes, all right, for my mind to be mentally mature enough to enjoy alcoholic beverage. Or that lady had to, that child, all right, had to wait 1 more minute, and then she could make out and, give someone a hand job if she wanted to. But if that, but that is that 1 minute, because in that 1 minute, the whole understanding of the world came into her mind, and she aged up. But motherfucker, this ain't like Dungeons and Dragons, all right? It's not an arbitrary number like, oh, you're level 1 now. At level 2, you gain an extra feat. All right, you get a class feature. No, you don't get anything extra. You just get, that's it. Arbitrary rules. Well, congratulations. Now you can drink. Cool. I only couldn't drink because you said I couldn't drink. You put that rule on it, right? And people say, well, isn't the whole puberty thing? No, it's not an arbitrary rule because there's a cause and effect, all right? Before that age, you do not produce eggs. You're not bleeding. You're not menstruating. All right, which means you cannot get pregnant. And if you cannot get pregnant, that means you are not to be engaging in sexual activities. Okay? That's how it works. That's what puberty is. Puberty, it marks your transition into womanhood. All right? And they'll even say that, congratulations, you're a woman now, but wait, you're not a woman. Right? They'll still say, stay out of adult business. But then you are a woman because you've been bleeding, but you're not a woman because they put an arbitrary rule on what's a woman and what's not a woman. And you can do certain things. You're a woman now, but you can't own your own house because you're not 18, because you need to be 18 to move out. But you can get a job, all right? But you can't own a gun because you have to be 18. But it can be a shotgun, but it can't be a handgun, because if it's a handgun, it has to be 21. All right, but even if you're 18, it has to be an adult that buys it that's over 21 to buy you that gun, even though you can own the gun. You just can't buy the gun. See how Esau, man. Esau. And anyway, I'm getting off on a completely different topic. Esau, but people are diehard about that. They're like, no, that's how it works. Yep, and about 40 years ago, all right, back in the day, all right, in the 70s, it was completely normal to get with a 16-year-old, and that changed. All right, everybody back then thought it was normal, okay? And then you were told that it's not normal, all right, and that got raised up. Okay, and now you said, oh, it's 18, but then everybody said, hey, that's not normal either. Now it's 21, and now you say, oh, it's 21. All these people that are getting with 18-year-olds, they're sickle. And now they're trying to say a woman's really not fully mentally mature until she's 30. So did you know there's people saying that like an individual, like they don't classify the full maturity of a woman until 30? So what's that going to mean? You fuck a 28-year-old, and now all of a sudden you're a sexual predator? Think about it, man. Use your brain. Arbitrary rules are arbitrary. Look up what arbitrary means. It's one of my favorite words because you know what? Everything in Esau society is arbitrary. That's why I use that word, because everything's arbitrary in Esau society. Okay? Arbitrary refers to actions, decisions, or rules based on a random choice, a personal whim or impulse, rather than reason, logic, or established law. It's just arbitrary. It's just making some shit up to me. Oh, hey, if you come into my house, you can only come into my house wearing orange shoes, and you have to hop on your left foot and go hookah, 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 hookah. All right? Well, you can't enter my house unless you do that. What kind of arbitrary bullshit is that? What's the logic behind that? What's the reasoning? Right? Well, it's my rule. It means it's right. It doesn't mean it's right. It's fucking arbitrary. It's bullshit. You just made it up. All right? It's a lie. They made it up. All right? Michael Jackson, inside joke. Anyway. Back back to it. So Esau loves little kids, all right, which I don't know why they put arbitrary, well, not really arbitrary restrictions. I mean, yeah, I guess it is arbitrary restrictions. Some of it, what, the 16, 17, 15, and, 18, all these, those are arbitrary, all right. The non-arbitrary, according to law, is 12 to 13. That doesn't mean we're going to do it now. We don't do that now. We're just saying that's how it was biblically before Esau changed everything that they could possibly change, right? But anyway, and again, I don't know why they, still keep it as, getting with younger people is bad when, again, they like to do that. So it just makes them look bad according to their own law. Anyway, back to it. But they like to touch little kids. They like to diddle kids. They're the kitty diddlers. That's what they like to do. It says, more alarming, however, was and they like to do anything with kids. They like to kill kids. That's where the adrenochrome comes from. They like to diddle kids. All right, that's where the Epstein files come from. They even all the jerky. That's just little kids in the files, man. But it says, more alarming, however, was the revelation that many of the Israelites made soon afterward. On various occasions upon their arrival and over the next few months, a considerable number of them, mostly children and adolescents, said repeatedly and to different people that one of the Israelites on board, the Arrogante, had been murdered, and that subsequently the sailors had cooked pieces of his body and served them with rice to the rest of the Israelites. Many other accusations of beatings, rapes, see, it was in there and I didn't even know it was, and other various violent punishments were levied against the captain and crew. So anyway, I don't know how long I've been going on with this, but this is going to be a multiple piece because this is quite long. I want to get some scriptures. So here's one I want to get. I get the scripture all the time, all right, but this needs to be gotten, all right. This is Ecclesiastes 12:10. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. So, how are you going to have these guys that are saying they didn't do anything, all right, but yet time and time again you can prove that they're doing something? This is why you should never trust your enemy. They're saying, we never did those things to you. What the fuck are you talking about? Anybody, and just for this lesson, all right, this is what I need or would like you brothers and sisters to do, all right, that have any doubts in your mind, okay, that Esau wasn't doing some sick and twisted shit to it's a conspiracy theory or whatever. That's what you're going to do, right? Jim Crow, right here, Jim Crow Museum, all right, .ferris.edu. You can just watch. I'll just type it out. Just type in Jim Crow Museum. Okay. Now, if you're in Michigan, I would probably recommend just going in person. I would if I was in Grand Rapids, Michigan, or Big Rapids, Michigan. I would love to go. But I'm not near there. So what you can do, click on this website, Jim Crow Museum. Okay? And what you're going to do, you're going to go to this little hamburger menu. If it will open. I guess it won't open. What is this? Now, close out of this first. Okay. Explore. No. Where is it at? Learn. You can go to Map Store. Easiest way I'm going to do it for you, Jake. Type in Jim Crow Museum virtual tour. Okay. Boom. It's going to say registration. You don't have to register for shit. All right. That's only if you want to be guided through it. All right. But you can do right here. It's going to bring you here. You're going to hit the virtual tour platform. It's going to bring you to My Matterport. Right. It's going to give you an overview. It's going to bring you right in. And now look. All right. 360 view, just like you were there. All right. It's even better on a laptop. All right. And you can just click. Right? And there's all this different information. All this different information. You can go here. Look. Look at the artifacts they made of you, Jake. Look. And all you got to do, what you can do is you can zoom out. Let's look at it. What is this? You can click on it. Well, fuck, yeah, I clicked wrong and it kicked me out. But let me go back over here again. And there, and click that. And let me move over there while I look at it. Alright. We can bring this up. It gives you a whole thing on slavery in America. You can play it. It's going to give you a whole bunch of videos. You can even just click one by one, all right, and it'll move you through, okay? It'll move you through as you keep on clicking. I don't like to do it that way. I like to just walk through at my own pace and just, look around and see and be like, oh, what's this? And go in here. Color patrons only. Interesting. What is this down here? Police force and black militants are arming for a second civil war. Interesting. I wonder what that's about. Let me click that. See if that's talking about the Civil War. Civil rights. It's talking about that. Interesting. Cool. I can watch the video. You can keep on going on and on and on. Now, the second hallway down here is probably the most telling. Or this one right here, the first hallway, is some of the most interesting stuff in the whole museum. There's more to it, but this is the one with the gator bait stuff. Soon as I said that, of course, now it wants to not work. 1 minute. Let me show you. Anyway, this is something you should do for yourself, Jake. Again, if you think that they're not doing those things, well, go and see. Go and see. This is, artifacts of what they had back then. And again, it's better on a laptop. It used to be better than this, but now it's just very slow. Let me try to find... There you go. See that? See the gator? Because they used to feed our people the gator bait. Right? And they do that with little babies. Alright? Our babies, mind you. So, you don't believe it? Go ahead and look it up. Go ahead and look it up. Right? Prove it to yourself. So, again, going back to Ecclesiasticus 12 and 10, never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. So let's get a couple more scriptures. Alright? Let's get a couple more. Again, I don't know how many parts this is going to be. It really depends on how long the source material goes on for, because again, I haven't even got some of the other material. Right? So let's get Psalm 12 and 8. Let's get it. We'll stay over here today. It's like my phone's being a little slow and laggy because it's old. I'm still on the 13. But phones is expensive, so I'm going to have to stay on it. So, Psalms 12 and 8. You know what? I lied. Let's go to the Bible Gateway. Got the Good News version up. But we'll read that first and then get the King James version. Here's the Good News version. It says, the wicked are everywhere, and everyone praises what is evil. Keep us always safe, O Lord, and preserve us from such people. And again, we're in a situation now where everybody praises not only the evil that these people are doing, but they just praise them. All right, they're the evil, they're the wicked, and everybody praises them. All right, and their evil actions. Right? These people are exalted. These people are put on high. Right? Meanwhile, they're a bunch of fucking, red skin, blue-eyed, flying purple Israelite eaters. However you want to go with that one, that old song. Flying purple people eaters. Flying brown-skinned. Oh, they were blue-eyed, red-skinned. Not flying. Let's see. Lion. All right, they were blue-eyed, red-skinned, lion, brown-skinned people leaders. Ooh, a little tongue twisty there. All right, but there you go. They were blue-eyed, red-skinned, lying, brown-skinned people eaters. All right, that's what they were, man. All right, not one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eaters. All right, not to get that confused. But that's what they were, brown-skinned people eaters. All right, that's what they do. Where are we? King James Version here. All right, let me get to the point. So Psalms 12 and 8, it says, the wicked are everywhere, and everyone praises what is evil. Keep us always safe, O Lord, and preserve us from such people. Slack you. I had to hit enter. That's not the version. The wicked walk on every side when the vilest men are exalted. So mind you, it doesn't just say that, like what the Good News says. It says that they praise what is evil, like their evil actions. No. The vilest men are exalted. Okay, the vilest men are exalted. What does exalted mean? Really, we should be exalting the Lord. Exalt, to something raised to a high rank, power or noble status. And is that what we're not at now? The most vilest people are exalted. Okay? These people that were doing all sorts of atrocities and all sorts of abomination are now the number one people on earth, man. Ain't that some fucking shit? Ain't that some shit? All right, and they're the God's chosen. They're the Aryan race, the perfect race. They're everything, right? They can't even go out in the sun without fucking getting a skin cancer. But they're the most perfect people. God loves them, but created the sun that shines upon the earth, a deadly force against them. The chosen people ain't going to be affected by the goddamn sun. Ridiculous, man. Ridiculous. Well, I can't stay out in the sun too long. I really start to burn. Better use some sunscreen. And you know what sunscreen does if you look at it under a UV light? It's artificial melanin. So you telling me they need to put that on. You don't think the chosen people would just already have it? Oh, wait. They do. Come on, man. Come on. Get with the program. Let's get Revelation 22 and 11. It reads, "He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he which is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still." "And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according as his work shall be." So what type of reward do you think a cannibalistic people eater is going to get? Not a good one. "I am Alpha," and really the point for this one, we get this scripture a lot, but we're going down here and getting 15, which we don't get a lot. It says, "I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Blessed are they that do his commandments, they that may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. For without," what? The commandments, all right, "are dogs and sorcerers and idolaters, and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie." And what is the lie that's being made today? We never ate people. We never ate people. Really? Did you not? You didn't eat people. At all. Huh. That's crazy how we found a bunch of articles about you eating people then. So, let's get, that'll be we talked for a good amount of time. All right, got a couple scriptures, 3 or 4. So, that'll be the first part. All right, that'll be the first part. Hopefully, this will be a little mini series. Maybe it will be. All right, maybe I'll change the title. It'll be all about, some pulling out some dirt on Esau. But yeah, that's where we're going to close out, I think, for that one. Lord, what was edifying? Again, I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Shalom, you brothers and sisters out there. Keep enduring. Keep the faith. We're almost out of here. Until next one, Lord willing. Shalom.